Well, hello, all of my students. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Jay, and welcome back to the channel where I have the opportunity to help you with your English fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. I primarily do that on my channel by the reading and explaining of stories. And today I have a B-3 English through story lesson. Now, this is a story that will hit home, or it's very personal to me, and I will explain as I go. Now, this is not going to be a read and repeat story. If you would like those, be sure to check the playlist that are located here on my channel. If you would like my notes, be sure to join my Patreon, and you can get all of my notes there for each story. And be sure to hang around until the end, because I will quiz you on your comprehension of today's story. By the way, if you don't know, I do have another channel, Parlay with Jay. You can scan the QR code or go to the description, and I have lessons there to help strengthen your English listening skills. Okay, with that being said, I hope you're ready for a little bit of learning, a little bit of reflection and laughter today. Let's dive into today's story. The Stewart family was a lively, close-knit group until Holly, the mother, fell seriously ill. Seriously ill, okay? The Stewart family was a lively, close-knit group. So when someone is close-knit, it describes them as being tight, okay? We describe people that are very close together. You know, we say, ooh, those two are tight. And so you have some families that are very close. I mean, the siblings, the parents, the aunts and nephews. And for me personally, that is something that I wasn't raised in, because it was just a family of four. Okay, my mother, my father, and my sister and myself. All of my parents' family, which would have been my nieces, my nephews, my cousins, grandparents, all of them were in another state. So when my parents got married, they moved away. And so our family was not that close-knit to other members of the family. Now notice, Holly, the mother, fell seriously ill. Seriously ill. In other words, she was sick. Now, when someone is seriously ill, maybe they're about to die. We say that they are on their deathbed. Okay, so sometimes, excuse me, the family can sense that, you know, this sickness may cause the family member to die. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes a person gets well, they get a miracle, but sometimes someone gets sick, and then these may be their last few days here on earth. So I normally do 3 videos a week, and last week I was out of town. I went to Philadelphia, I went to New York, Baltimore, New Jersey, did some traveling and relaxing with my wife and some friends. And when I got back, a friend of the family had passed. And so that's why I haven't been making videos these last few weeks or these last few days, because a close friend of the family recently passed. And so I took some time off. You know, sometimes when you're doing content on YouTube, followers want content to just keep coming, but they forget that people that make content have lives. And so that was a moment in time I needed to take a step back, spend some time with the family, some friends, And now I can get back, as we say, in the swing of things. But when a family member falls ill or sick, it can take a toll on other family members. So let's find out what happens in the Stewart family. Her illness cast a shadow over the household, and the once vibrant home became eerily quiet. Her illness, Holly's illness, cast a shadow over the household. That's a term that we use. It cast a shadow over a household, or it cast a shadow. Sometimes you hear people say, man, it's like you have a dark cloud overhead. Okay. So when we use the phrase cast a shadow over someone or over a household, it suggests that they're going through difficult times, hardships. Okay. So you might say, wow, I notice you haven't been at school, but since I've seen you, it's like you have a shadow over your head, or a dark cloud over your head, meaning they're going through something difficult or challenging. Okay. An eerie quiet. Notice I wrote here that the once vibrant or excited, fun to be around household had become eerily quiet, noticeably. Something's going on. Have you ever been close to someone that's usually active, loud, laughing, and then all of a sudden they're quiet? And so you observe them and you say, you know what? I can't put my finger on it, but they're dealing with something. Okay, let's find out what happens. Harold, the father, tried to keep things together. So Harold tried to keep the house functioning normally. Okay. Sometimes when you go through hardship, you say, you know what? I'm trying to keep it together. I'm trying to keep my peace. I'm trying to do everything that I normally do. That's how we describe staying organized. I'm trying to keep it together. And sometimes we'll say, before I fall apart. Okay, like a puzzle. Okay, you keep the pieces together, and you don't want it to fall apart. Harold, the father, tried to keep things together, but the weight of watching his wife suffer was like carrying the world on his shoulders. Okay, that's another phrase. Carrying the world on his shoulders, or the weight of the world. Sometimes we say, I feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. So that simply means that a person is burdened down. They're dealing with a lot. And I don't know about you, if you have ever had a mother, a father, or a sibling, or a close family member or friend that they're battling sickness in their body. Oh, and it's only so much you can do, and you have to sit back and watch. So let me tell you about my friend. Actually, let me tell you about two friends. So one of my friends, I saw him Sunday after church, and I haven't seen him in months. And he has been battling he's been battling kidney issues. And so he has to go and take dialysis. And dialysis is when you get hooked up to a machine and it pumps your blood out, cleans it, and then puts it back in. And so I could tell he had been going through something. His skin color had changed. He lost some weight. But it was so good to see him. And we talked for a while Sunday afternoon. Now, my friend who passed, she has been battling, or had been battling, diabetes for some time. About 2 years ago, she actually had to have her legs amputated. And so she's been getting around in a wheelchair. But one thing that was so wonderful about her, she didn't pout. She didn't start becoming pessimistic or negative. She kept enjoying life. She was a fighter. Okay. And then I didn't even know that she had to get dialysis at least twice a week. And so if you've ever met anyone on dialysis, it takes a lot of strength out of them. And so let me tell you what happened. She had a great day. I think it was Friday, because at the services, her pastor was telling us how he last talked to her and how she was enjoying her day. She spent time with her husband, got to eat what she wanted to eat. And then she told her husband that she was tired. And remember, she's in her mid-60s, and she said she wanted to go lay down. So she went to lay down, and her husband went outside to do some yard work. And so he was blowing the leaves off of the driveway, and he said, look, I need to go back and check on my wife. And he went back to check on her. And when he went to check on her, the Lord had took her away. She was gone. Oh, wow. If you're going to go, that's a great way to go. I mean, just right in your sleep, peaceful, around your family. And so we celebrated her life and legacy. I've known her for over 25 years. But the last few years, the family has really been helping her along, and she's been just doing so great. And so it takes a toll when you see a family member dealing with something in their body. Okay. The family is trying to keep it together. Okay. Let me continue with the story. Connor, the eldest son or the oldest son, tried to step up and help. Tried to step up. So step up can mean walking upstairs. You're going higher. But when someone steps up, they're doing better. Okay. So a parent may tell their child, look, you're making low grades. I need you to step things up. Okay. Or a parent may come into the house and say, hey, this house is messy. Everybody, let's step it up. Let's get this house clean. Okay. Let's do better. But he often found himself feeling powerless and frustrated. Powerless and frustrated. What a feeling, because it's only so much you can do. And so at some point in my mind, I've gotten to the point to where I realize there are certain things that are just bigger than me. And so I just say, God, I need your help. I need your strength. I need your grace. And during times like this, I have found that's when we can cast our cares on the Lord, because he cares for us. And so Connor, the eldest son, he's really, as we say, going through it. You know, I have had the pleasure of helping young people deal with the death of their loved ones. And imagine a child or a teenager having to deal with their parents going through a divorce. I've had to do that a number of times. Okay. And the child feels like Connor, helpless and frustrated, because there's only so much a person can do. We're limited. Kenny, the youngest, didn't understand why his mom couldn't play with him. Oh my goodness. Anymore, and withdrew into his room to escape the sadness. Kenny, the youngest, didn't understand why his mom couldn't play with him anymore, and withdrew into his room to escape the sadness. That's why it's so important not to forget, when a family goes through things, that the children experience hardship also. Oh, wow. This is really touching me. Let's continue and find out what happens. The emotional strain, emotional strain began to crack the family's bond. The emotional strain began to crack the family's bond. So, emotional strain, the stress, okay, makes your head hurt, your heart aches, you can't eat sometimes, you can't sleep. All of these conditions describe stress, strain, anxiety, or as I said here in the sentence, emotional strain. And arguments erupted over the smallest things, like unwashed dishes or forgotten chores. Okay. Arguments erupted. Arguments started. Okay. Over the smallest things like unwashed dishes or forgotten chores. I remember when I graduated from college, after a period of time, I worked at a car wash and a grocery store. Here I am with a college degree, and I couldn't find my job that I so desired at the time. So for 13 months, and this was like the first year of marriage, and I'm 22. Oh man, there was so much emotional strain because of what we were going through financially. Okay. And my wife and we would argue about the smallest things. Okay. Then when I finally did get the job that paid me a salary and had benefits, I had to drive an hour one way to go to work 8 hours, and then drive an hour back. And I'll never forget how I had to learn how to leave my stressful job situations at the workplace and not bring it home. And I would frustrate my wife about what I was dealing with on the job by putting it all on her when I got home. And it caused emotional strain. And we would argue over just stupid stuff. But when you're going through things in your family and you're living together and you're trying to stay together, whether you're in a marriage or a family, these things happen and you have to learn how to deal with it because life can be challenging. So let's find out what happens in the family. Harold, once the family rock, began to snap at the boys, leaving them feeling confused and hurt. Oh, Harold. Oh, he's hurting. He's hurting bad. I can remember a television show back in the 70s that I used to watch, and it's still popular, called Good Times, with the Evans family. And I'll never forget, there was an episode when the father died. James Sr. died. James Evans Sr. died coming home from work. And man, the family was so stressed out. And a famous scene is when Florida, the wife, she smashes some dishes, crack, and she says, "Dang, dang, dang." It was funny, but she was stressed out because her husband died, and he was the one that was keeping the family going in the right direction. Okay, yes, fathers are very, very, very important. Okay, let's find out what happens. Despite their efforts to stay strong, it felt like they were slowly falling apart. It gets tough sometimes. So they were falling apart or becoming distant. Holly, though weak, urged them to come together and reminded them that family was their strength. Isn't that just like a good mother? To step in and say, hey, remember what we should do and what we should not do. And so she reminds them that, look, it's better for us to be together than to be apart. I believe that a house divided against itself will come to desolation and it will not stand. So she said, hey, let's get it together. Go ahead, Holly. Eventually, they realized that they could either crumble under the pressure, or lean on one another for support. And together, they chose the latter. So, crumble under the pressure, a phrase that means give up, or lean on one another for support means to draw strength from one another. And so thankfully, notice how I wrote it, they chose the latter. Okay, not a ladder to climb up a building, but the latter, the last choice, the last statement, which was to lean on one another for support. Well, that's going to do it for today's story. Let's read through the same story at a faster pace, okay? Without stopping or explanation. Are you ready? Let's dive in. The Stewart family was a lively, close-knit group until Holly, the mother, fell seriously ill. Her illness cast a shadow over the household, and the once vibrant home became eerily quiet. Harold, the father, tried to keep things together, but the weight of watching his wife suffer was like carrying the world on his shoulders. Connor, the eldest son, tried to step it up and help, but he often found himself feeling powerless and frustrated. Kenny, the youngest, didn't understand why his mom couldn't play with him anymore and withdrew into his room to escape the sadness. The emotional strain began to crack the family's bond, and arguments erupted over the smallest things like unwashed dishes or forgotten chores. Harold, once the family rocked, began to snap at the boys, leaving them feeling confused and hurt. Despite their efforts to stay strong, it felt like they were slowly falling apart. Holly, though weak, urged them to come together and reminded them that family was their strength. Eventually, they realized that they could either crumble under the pressure or lean on one another, and together they chose the latter. All right. So let's test your comprehension with these quiz questions. I want you to place your answers as usual down in the comments section. What does cast a shadow over the household mean? What does cast a shadow over the household mean? Number 2, what does feel powerless mean? I gave you the answer for that. Let's see if you can remember. And number 3, what does the weight of the world on his shoulders mean? What does the weight of the world on your shoulders or someone else's shoulders mean? Wow. So I know I got a little deep. I know I got a little serious. I think anytime you talk about death, it affects people in different ways. But I'm so grateful that I've come to understand that death is a part of life, and we're all going to experience it someday. Sometimes it's unexpected. Sometimes it's difficult to deal with. But even our loved ones, everyone is going to get a turn, as I say. But we can be prepared for death if we have the best understanding, as well as helping one another to cope through those difficult times. Hey, if you want the notes or want to show your support, you can become a channel member or join my Patreon. That link is also in the bio here on the channel. I really hope you guys have enjoyed today's lesson, and thanks for not unsubscribing. I normally have had or would have had a couple of lessons, but like I said before, just had some things to deal with. But thank you so much for still supporting the channel. If you have enjoyed today's lesson, I invite you to share today's lesson with a friend. Until next time, I hope you join me on my next English lesson.